The restaurant shimmered with warm golden light, the kind that made everything feel softer, almost magical. Laughter drifted through the air, blending with the clinking of glasses and the low hum of music in the background. My colleagues sat around a long table, dressed in white linen, their faces glowing with excitement as they celebrated another successful quarter for Arden and Cole Consulting. And tonight, it was supposed to be my night. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe only if this story has sparked your curiosity. I'd also love to know where you're listening from and what the temperature is like where you are right now. Just a quick note, this is a fictional story. Some elements have been enhanced or created with the help of AI. It's meant purely for entertainment and a bit of reflection. All right, now let me take you back and tell you what really happened. Step by step, I smoothed down the fabric of my dark emerald dress, taking a quiet breath as I glanced around the room. 5 years. That's how long I had given this company. 5 years of late nights, fixing crises no one else wanted to touch, stepping in when teams fell apart, mentoring new hires who often surpassed me in title but never in experience. And yet, I stayed. Because I believed in something. I believed in growth, in loyalty, in the quiet promise my boss, Daniel Reeves, had been feeding me for months. "You're next in line. Ilawan," he had said more than once, always with that confident smile. Just wait. So I waited. Tonight was the moment that waiting was supposed to pay off. At the head of the table, Daniel stood, raising his glass gently. The subtle chime of his fork tapping against crystal cut through the noise. And slowly, the room fell silent. Conversations faded, eyes turned toward him. My heart began to pound. This was it. I could almost picture it, the applause, the smiles, the validation I had worked so hard to earn. My fingers tightened slightly around the stem of my glass as anticipation curled in my chest. I straightened my posture, forcing a calm smile onto my face. Finally, after everything, I was about to be seen. Daniel lifted his glass slightly higher, his voice smooth and confident as it carried across the table. "Tonight," he began, "I want to recognize someone truly exceptional." A ripple of anticipation moved through the room. I felt it too, a quiet surge of certainty building in my chest. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment everything would finally make sense. "Someone," he continued, "who has demonstrated remarkable talent, initiative, and leadership in a very short time." My smile held, but something inside me hesitated. A very short time, Daniel turned slightly, his gaze shifting away from me, just enough for doubt to creep in. "It's rare," he said, "to see such impact in only a few months." The words landed softly, but they didn't belong to me. Then he said her name, Clara Bennett. The room erupted. Applause burst out instantly, loud and enthusiastic, as heads turned toward the other end of the table. Clara, the newest hire. 3 months in the company. 3 months of observing, asking questions, occasionally stepping into projects I had already built from the ground up. I didn't move. My fingers tightened subtly around my glass, the cold stem pressing into my skin, as if grounding me in a reality I wasn't ready to accept. My ears rang, drowning out the cheers, the congratulations, the laughter that followed. Daniel smiled proudly at her. "I'm excited to officially announce your promotion to senior manager." More applause. Louder this time. Clara stood, visibly flustered but glowing under the attention. She thanked everyone, her voice light, almost uncertain. I could see the disbelief in her eyes. She hadn't expected this either. Neither had I. And yet, there I was, sitting perfectly still, forcing my lips into a polite curve. I lifted my glass slightly, nodding in her direction as our eyes briefly met. "Congratulations," I said, my voice steady, almost effortless, as if nothing inside me had just shattered. The applause slowly faded, but the tension it left behind lingered in the air like something heavy and unspoken. I lowered my glass, keeping my expression composed. Even as a quiet pressure built in my chest, Daniel's gaze drifted back to me, almost as if he had just remembered I was there. And of course, he added with a casual smile, Ilawan has been a valuable part of the team for years. We appreciate everything you've done. That was it. 5 years reduced to a single sentence. No title. No recognition beyond something polite and hollow. Just enough to acknowledge me. Not enough to mean anything. I nodded, still smiling, as though that was all I had ever expected. Clara absolutely deserves it, I said, lifting my glass again in a smooth, practiced motion. She's done great work. Daniel chuckled lightly, clearly pleased with how gracefully I was handling the situation. She's already doing more than you, Ilawan, he said, his tone almost teasing. You might want to take a few notes. The laughter came quickly, not cruel, not loud, but enough. Enough to echo in my ears. Enough to make the moment stretch longer than it should have. Clara's smile faltered. I wouldn't say that, she murmured, glancing at me. But the damage was already done. Something sharp twisted beneath my ribs, but I didn't let it show. I let out a soft laugh, the kind that blended in, the kind that didn't invite questions. Looks like I have some catching up to do, I replied lightly. I even tilted my head, as if I found it amusing. Inside, everything felt different. Every late night, every problem I had quietly solved, every time I had stepped in without being asked, they flickered through my mind, not as proud memories, but as something else entirely, something disposable. I took a slow sip of my drink, letting the silence settle in the space behind my smile. Around me, the celebration picked back up, conversations flowing as if nothing had happened. And maybe, to them, nothing had, but I could feel it clearly now. The shift, the realization that everything I thought I had been building toward had never really belonged to me at all. By the time the night finally came to an end, my cheeks ached from smiling. I had laughed when expected, nodded in the right places, even stayed long enough to avoid drawing attention to myself. No one stopped me as I slipped out of the restaurant, the door closing quietly behind me as the warmth and noise faded into the background. Outside, the air was cool and still. For a moment, I just stood there on the sidewalk, letting the silence settle around me. The city lights flickered in the distance, cars passing by in a steady rhythm that felt oddly grounding. My reflection stared back at me from the darkened window beside the entrance. Calm, composed, unrecognizable. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. My fingers hovered over the screen for a second longer than necessary. Not because I was unsure, but because I was finally certain. There was nothing left to question. I opened my email and began typing. Subject, resignation letter. The words came easily. Almost too easily. Dear Daniel, please accept this as my formal resignation. Effective immediately. Best regards. Ilawan Hart. No explanations, no emotions, just clarity. I reread it once, my thumb resting lightly over the send button. 5 years of effort, loyalty, and patience reduced to 3 short lines. Then, I pressed send. The moment the email disappeared from my outbox, something shifted inside me. Not anger, not sadness, relief. A quiet, steady kind of relief that I hadn't felt in years. I exhaled slowly, as if I had been holding my breath for far too long without realizing it. The weight I had carried, the expectations, the waiting, it all seemed to loosen its grip at once, for the first time in a long time. I wasn't staying out of hope, I was leaving by choice. I slipped my phone back into my bag and started walking, heels echoing softly against the pavement. The night stretched out in front of me, unfamiliar but strangely promising, and somewhere beneath the calm, a thought settled in. This wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of something they never saw coming. If you believe I chose self-respect over silent endurance, write yes, because sometimes walking away is the strongest move you can make. If you think I acted too quickly and let emotions lead, write mistake, because every perspective deserves to be heard. Either way, your voice matters, and your choice might help someone else find the courage to decide their own path. Monday morning arrived with an unusual stillness. I walked into the office like I had done hundreds of times before, but everything felt different. Lighter, clearer. My resignation email had already been sent, sitting quietly in Daniel's inbox, waiting to be opened. At first, nothing seemed out of place. The receptionist greeted me with her usual smile. A few coworkers chatted near the coffee machine, their laughter soft and unaware. Clara was already at her desk, still glowing from Friday night. Replaying her moment, I set my bag down, powered on my computer, and waited. It didn't take long. Ilawan, my office, now. Daniel's voice cut through the floor, sharper than usual. Conversations stopped, heads turned. There was something in his tone I had never heard before: urgency, maybe even a hint of panic. I stood calmly and walked toward his office, each step steady. The door closed behind me. He was already holding a printed copy of my email, his eyes scanning my face as if searching for an explanation that made sense. "You're leaving?" he asked. "Yes," I replied, taking a seat without hesitation. Effective immediately. His brows pulled together. "This is sudden. We didn't talk about this." I let out a soft breath. "We didn't talk about Clara's promotion either. But that didn't stop you." His jaw tightened. "Ilawan. That decision wasn't personal. She performed better." I tilted my head slightly. After 3 months, silence flickered between us. He leaned forward. "You've been important to this company. I don't want to lose you." I held his gaze, steady and unshaken. "You didn't mind losing me on Friday," I said quietly. "Not when I was overlooked. Not when I was laughed at. Not when you told me to learn from someone who just arrived." The room felt smaller. "This isn't about the promotion," I continued. "It's about respect, and you made it very clear where I stand, for the first time." Daniel didn't have an immediate answer. Daniel leaned back slightly, his fingers tapping against the desk, as if searching for control he was quickly losing. "So what's your plan?" he asked, his tone sharper now. "You're just going to walk away, go to one of our competitors. You know we have non-compete clauses." A small smile touched my lips. He still didn't understand. "I'm not going to a competitor," I said calmly, standing up from my chair. "I don't need to." His eyes narrowed. "Then what are you talking about?" I paused for a moment, letting the silence stretch just enough to make him uncomfortable. "Do you remember Victor Hale?" I asked. The reaction was instant. His posture stiffened, his expression tightening in recognition. Of course he remembered. Victor had been the company's chief financial officer, the one person who had challenged Daniel openly, who had seen through decisions others were too afraid to question. And just like that, he had been pushed out. Quietly, but decisively. "You fired him last year," I continued. "Said he was replaceable." Daniel didn't respond, but I could see it in his eyes. The memory, the tension. "He reached out to me a few months ago," I said. "He's building his own firm. He offered me a position, director of operations. That got his full attention. I turned him down." I added, meeting his gaze. "I was loyal to this company." The room felt heavier now, the air thick with something unspoken. But Friday night changed that. I let the words settle before finishing. I called him after I left the party. He made the offer again. Daniel's voice dropped. And I held his gaze, steady and unshaken. I accepted. For a second. Nothing moved. Then everything in his expression shifted at once. The confidence, the control, the certainty. It cracked. "You're leaving for him?" he asked, his voice tighter than before. "I start next Monday." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "Ilawan, think about this. We can fix this. We can talk about your role, your compensation, whatever you need." I shook my head gently. It's too late for that. For the first time since I had known him. Daniel looked like a man who realized he had made a mistake he couldn't undo. When I stepped out of Daniel's office, the silence across the floor was immediate. It wasn't the usual quiet of a busy morning. This was different, heavy, curious. Every pair of eyes seemed to follow me, even if people pretended to be focused on their screens. News traveled fast in places like this. I returned to my desk without rushing, moving with a calmness that surprised even me. My inbox was already filling with notifications, but I ignored them. Instead, I opened my sent email and forwarded my resignation to the broader leadership team. Simple, direct, final. It didn't take more than a minute before the whispers began. Ilawan is leaving, is that real? I heard something happened on Friday. I could feel it spreading, like a quiet ripple turning into something larger. Rachel was the first to approach me, her expression a mix of shock and understanding. "You're actually going?" she asked softly. I nodded, offering a small smile. "Yeah, it's time," she exhaled, shaking her head. "Honestly, I'm not surprised. You deserved better." A few others lingered nearby, pretending not to listen, but clearly absorbing every word, even from across the room. I could see Clara glance up from her desk, her posture tense. Uncertain, she hesitated for a moment, then stood and walked toward me. "Ilawan." "I didn't know," she said quietly, her voice unsure. I looked at her, studying her expression. Maybe she didn't orchestrate any of this. Maybe she was just in the right place at the right time. "It's fine," I replied. Not unkindly. "You should focus on your new role." She nodded, but the confidence from Friday night was gone. I finished packing the last of my things into a small box. 5 years reduced to a handful of personal items. As I walked toward the elevator, a few soft claps broke the silence behind me. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to be felt. I didn't turn around. Inside the elevator, as the doors slowly closed, I caught a final glimpse of the office, and for the first time, it felt like I was leaving something that no longer deserved me. The following Monday, I stood in front of a sleek glass building that reflected the morning light like something new waiting to be written. Hale and Carter Group. It wasn't as large or as polished as my previous company, but there was something different about it. The energy felt alive, not routine. People weren't just maintaining systems here, they were building something. I stepped inside, heels echoing softly against the marble floor, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something unfamiliar. Excitement. No second guessing, no waiting to be noticed, no proving my worth over and over again. When the elevator doors opened, I was greeted almost immediately. "Ilawan," Victor said, walking toward me with a genuine smile. "Glad you're here. Not welcome, not we'll see how it goes. Just certainty." My office was ready. Not a cubicle, not a shared space. A real office, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a door I could close. A space that said, without words, "You belong here." The morning moved quickly: introductions, meetings, onboarding, but nothing felt forced. During the first leadership session, I listened carefully, observing the dynamics. Then Victor turned to me. "I want you to lead the operations restructuring," he said. "You understand the gaps better than anyone." No hesitation, no testing, just trust. For a brief second, I almost questioned it, not because I doubted myself, but because I wasn't used to being valued so directly. "I'd be happy to," I replied, keeping my voice steady. A few team members nodded in agreement, their expressions supportive, not competitive. That was when it truly settled in. Here, I didn't have to fight to be seen. I already was. As the meeting continued, I leaned slightly back in my chair, a quiet realization forming beneath the surface. This wasn't just a new job. It was the first place where my work and my voice actually mattered. 2 days after I started at Hale and Carter, my phone buzzed during a quiet moment between meetings. It was Rachel, "Ilawan. You won't believe what's happening here." I leaned back in my chair, reading her messages one after another. Everything is falling apart. No one knows how to handle half the systems you used to manage. A small smile formed on my lips. But I kept reading. Clara is struggling. She's completely overwhelmed. It's not what Daniel thought. I exhaled softly. Of course it wasn't. Another message came in almost immediately. 3 clients asked for you by name today. When they found out you left, they weren't happy. That part made me pause, not because I was surprised, but because it confirmed something I had always known, even when no one else said it out loud. They hadn't trusted the company. They had trusted me. Later that afternoon, my assistant stepped into my office. Elawan, there's a call for you, from Westbridge Partners. They said they used to work closely with you, one of the largest clients from my previous company. Put them through, I said calmly. The voice on the other end was familiar, warm, direct. We heard you moved, he said. Things haven't been the same. We'd like to discuss continuing our partnership with you. It didn't stop there. Within days, more calls came in, different clients, same message. They were leaving. Not because I asked them to, because they chose to, back at my old company. The pressure was building. Rachel's updates became more frantic. Daniel is losing it. Emergency meetings. The board is getting involved. I could almost picture it, the tension, the panic, the realization settling in too late. And the truth was simple. I hadn't taken anything from them. I had only walked away. And somehow, that was enough to make everything start collapsing. By the end of the week, an email appeared in my inbox with a name I hadn't expected to see again. Daniel Reeves. I opened it slowly, more curious than surprised. Elawan, I'd like to discuss a proposal. I believe we can come to a mutually beneficial arrangement. I leaned back in my chair, letting out a quiet breath. The same man who had dismissed me so easily was now asking for a conversation. I replied with a short message, setting a time. Monday, 10 a.m. When I walked back into the building I had left behind, everything felt smaller. The energy was tense, uncertain. People glanced at me like I was something unfamiliar now. Daniel looked different too. Tired, uneasy. The confidence he once carried so effortlessly had faded. We need you back, he said without wasting time. I underestimated your role. I'll offer you a senior executive position, a significant raise, full control over your department. I listened without interrupting. Then I tilted my head slightly. You had 5 years to see my value, I said calmly. 5 years to respect my work. But you chose not to. He exhaled sharply. We can fix this, I shook my head. If I hadn't left, would you be offering me this now? He didn't answer. That was enough. I'm not interested, I said, standing up. It was never about the title or the money. It was about respect. I paused for a brief second before adding quietly, and that's not something you can offer me now. I walked out without looking back. Weeks later, I heard the final update from Rachel. Daniel had been removed. The board couldn't ignore the losses anymore. I set my phone down, a faint smile forming. He thought I was replaceable. In the end, it turned out he was. This is my story, but I know I'm not alone. If you've been in a moment like this, I'd really like to hear yours. Your story might give someone else the courage they need. I didn't walk away because I was weak. I walked away because I finally understood my worth. This journey taught me that loyalty means nothing without respect. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. If this story resonates with you, your voice matters more than you think. Sharing it could help someone else find their strength. If you want more stories like this, consider subscribing, leaving a comment, and sharing this video so it can reach the right person at the right time. Thank you for being here and walking this journey with me.